Another missing and unidentified persons we will tackle today, estimates that there are roughly 90,000 missing persons in the United States alone at any given time. While scientific advancements such as genealogy testing have solved many of these mysterious disappearances, many more remain unsolved and will likely remain so. Now we tackle the story of mysterious disappearance of Bonnie Hiam. When a young mother disappears, her 3-year-old son may be the only witness. On Christmas morning, 1992, in Jacksonville, Florida, Bonnie Hiam, a young wife and mother, opened presents with her son. Bonnie's husband, Michael, captured the moment forever on video. Less than 2 weeks later, Bonnie Hiam inexplicably vanished. Police began to suspect that Bonnie was dead, a victim of foul play. Their suspicions soon focused on Michael Hiam. Among the most damning evidence was the extraordinary testimony of a surprising witness, Michael and Bonnie's 3-year-old son, Aaron. This case has fueled a bitter, but unusual family dispute. Bonnie's own parents say she willfully abandoned Michael. But some of Michael's relatives are equally convinced that he murdered Bonnie. Michael worked as a manager in the construction supply company owned by his Aunt Evine and her husband. Bonnie did their accounts. Evine claimed that Michael was often abusive to Bonnie at the office and at least once became physical. One day they got into an argument in the parking lot, and she came in crying and he had slammed her hand in the door and her nails were broken and she was very upset at that point. Bonnie eventually decided to leave her husband, and in preparation, opened a bank account in her own name. To keep her plans secret, Bonnie had the bank statements mailed to her at work. According to Evine, Michael was enraged when he found out. Bonnie closed the account. But according to those closest to her, Bonnie never wavered in her plan to divorce Michael. She gave money to a friend for safekeeping, put down a deposit on her own apartment, and enrolled her son in a new preschool. But all that changed on the night of January 6, 1993. That evening, Bonnie came home from work at around 7:30 p.m. She intended to drop by Evine's later, to finalize plans for a friend's baby shower. According to Evine, Bonnie called her at 8:30. She was crying and she was upset. I asked why. She said that she and Mike had gotten into a discussion. And I asked her if she wanted me to call her back later. And she said no, that she would just talk to me in the morning. The next morning, neither Bonnie nor Michael showed up at work. However, hopes for Bonnie's safe return began to dim that same morning. Her purse turned up roughly 5 miles from home, buried in a motel dumpster near the Jacksonville airport. According to Detective Robert Hinson of the Jacksonville Sheriff's Department, robbery was not a motive due to the amount of money and credit cards left in the purse. The purse was secured by a maintenance worker, and a police officer was called to the scene, along with family members. Michael insisted from the start that he was not involved in his wife's disappearance. He said that on the night of January 6, Bonnie drove off alone after an argument at around 11 p.m. According to Detective Hinson, Michael stated that he called his mother, Carolyn Hiam, and asked her to watch Aaron while he looked for Bonnie. According to Carol and Mike, he was gone approximately 45 minutes. Then after he allegedly did that, he returned to the house where he waited until the next morning and never called the police, and called in and told his employer that he was going to be sick that day. Detective Hinson was less than convinced by Hiam's account. His instincts led him back to the Jacksonville airport, near the motel. Sure enough, it was there that Detective Hinson found Bonnie's car, abandoned in a parking lot. What was unusual was the positioning of the driver's seat, which appeared to be farther back than would have been comfortable for Bonnie. It was more in relation to someone about Michael Hiam's size. After the vehicle was processed, we found a shoe print on the driver's side floorboard. It was a very pristine print. Police concluded that the print had been made by the last person to drive the car. The distinctive tread pattern was traced to a rare style of athletic shoe. The exact pair was owned by none other than Michael Hiam. However, Bonnie's father Robert Paciuto did not feel the shoe print had any significance. If it's his footprint, I'm not sure it means anything. My footprint is in my wife's car, That doesn't mean I have ever done her any harm. Next, in a bold attempt to uncover the truth, Detective Hinton arranged for a child psychologist to interview Bonnie and Michael's son. From what Aaron told us that day, my only conclusion was that there had been a domestic fight and that Michael Hiam had killed his wife and had removed her, and that their 3.5-year-old son Aaron Hiam had witnessed this. However, Bonnie's father Robert was unconvinced by his grandson's testimony. The credibility of a child is something that you have to judge in perspective. He said a couple of things that we know were not true. Mom's car is in the lake. We know her car wasn't there. The families continue to be split about what, if anything, Michael knows about his wife's disappearance. After so many years, a piece of a skull was found while excavating the former home of Bonnie Hiam. And the new clue for the case: as a boy, Fraser would play with a toy dump truck in his backyard in Jacksonville, Florida. As a man, excavating behind his childhood home in 2014 as part of a renovation, he wielded a shovel, and discovered the yard was a clandestine grave. Fraser would find the skull and bones of his mother, who had gone missing in January 1993. On that day, that mother and child reunion brought Aaron Fraser face to face with the product of this defendant's ill will, prosecutor Mac Heavener told a state jury Friday, referring to Hiam. Michael Hiam, who took the stand to deny killing his wife and burying her body in their backyard in 1993, was found guilty by a Florida jury Friday of second-degree murder. The jury of 3 men and 3 women deliberated about 90 minutes before their verdict in the high-profile cold case was announced. Hiam showed no expression as the verdict was read. Hiam's son, Aaron Fraser, was among the relatives of Hiam's then-wife, Bonnie, sitting on the prosecution side of the court. Some wiped tears. It brought him face to face with the product of this defendant's hatred, the prosecutor said. And it brought him face to face with the product of this defendant's spite and evil intent. Wearing glasses and an olive-colored suit, Michael Hiam, 53, stared straight ahead and displayed no emotion, not then, nor any other time Heavener pointed at him during closing arguments. The defendant took the stand this week and maintained his innocence, as he has since his wife disappeared. "I loved my wife," he testified Thursday, according to the report. "I would never hurt my wife." But Heavener described Michael Hiam as a man going through marital problems and again pointing at the defendant, a guy who's really good, really accomplished at burying the truth. After reaching the verdict, Judge Stephen Whittington began the penalty phase of the case. The same jurors heard testimony from witnesses about aggravating factors that could get Hiam a longer sentence, whether the crime was committed in presence of a family member, included tampering with evidence, was committed in a heinous, atrocious and cruel manner, and inflicted severe emotional trauma on the victim's family. The jury agreed on 3 of the aggravating factors but found the crime was not committed in a heinous, atrocious and cruel manner. Fraser testified that he has been in therapy since childhood. He described the very uneasy encounter in which his paternal grandparents told him that they loved him but that he had been brainwashed. He also spoke about finding his mother's skull in the yard of his childhood home. "It was very tough," he said. "I think everybody can imagine, even if it's not a loved one, finding a skull and picking it up and what that would do to somebody. Not to mention, that it was your mother." Sentencing is set for May 17. Prosecutors lay out their theory on January 7, 1993, Bonnie Hiam did not show up to work. Michael Hiam would later say the couple fought the prior night and that she left the house alone around 11 p.m. Heavener told jurors the defendant had the motive, the opportunity and the ability to kill his wife. He knew Bonnie Hiam planned to leave him and take their son, then 3 years old. The night before she disappeared, she called her best friend. She was crying and upset. She told her friend that she would speak with her in the morning. Referring to Michael Hiam as Mr. Ill Will, Mr. Spite, Mr. Evil Intent, the prosecutor said the defendant owned the type of firearm used to kill Bonnie Hiam and that a sandy footprint on the floor mat of her car matched his size 10 Nike sneakers. "You'll see the truth scream from those floor mats," Heavener said. "The shoe print speaks volumes in this case." He had just finished digging the grave, Bonnie Hiam's purse was later found behind a red roof near Jacksonville International Airport, where police later discovered her car in an airport parking lot. Heavener said a lone key to Bonnie's car was in her purse. Another car key, along with her house key, was at the couple's home. It's pretty odd to think that a woman is going to leave her son, abandon her job and leave her house, without a set of keys she normally uses, leaving all her earthly belongings inside, the prosecutor said. A lot of reasonable doubt in this case beyond his client's claim of innocence, Michael Hiam's defense attorney told jurors the state's case was built on innuendo and hypotheticals that don't exist. Michael Hiam is not guilty, not because I say he's not, but because that's what the law is in this case, Tom Fallis said. You will find a lot of reasonable doubt in this case. Prosecutors were stretching the truth to secure conviction, Fallis said. They're going to stretch a lot because they don't have the evidence they need to prove beyond reasonable doubt, he said. They'll take anything and stretch it to get that conviction because that's what they do. That's what their job is. In rebuttal, Assistant State Attorney Alan Mizrahi told jurors, the truth about this case demands justice. Bonnie Hiam cannot get justice. It's up to us, the living, to find justice for her. Michael Hiam took the stand Thursday, attesting to his love for Bonnie Hiam. He also testified to his wife's state of mind on their last night together in January 1993. She'd been unhappy for, maybe, a month, maybe 2, he said. I can't put my finger on how long, but it had been going on where she wasn't her bubbly self like she was. A prosecutor asked Michael Hiam why he went to bed the night his wife walked out, tucking in next to his preschooler. I assumed she was going to her mother's, he said. I don't really know what else to tell you. Defense attorney Janice Warren said during opening statements that prosecutors did not have enough evidence to prove Michael Hiam's guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. We agree she's dead. We agree that's her body in the backyard. But they have to prove to you that he did it, she said. When you listen to the evidence, ladies and gentlemen, and when you're finished, you're gonna see the lack of evidence in this case far outweighs any evidence they brought you. Inmates testified to jailhouse confession, but 2 inmates on Wednesday testified that Michael Hiam in 2015 confessed to killing his wife while he was in jail with them. He started talking about, how he killed his wife, how he choked her, how her son was mad at him. He buried her in the yard, Terrence Richardson said. The discovery of Bonnie Hiam's body a year earlier had led officials to arrest Michael Hiam and charge him with second-degree murder, prosecutors have said. Michael Hiam, Bonnie's husband, went on trial in April 2019 and the jury took less than 90 minutes to find him guilty of her murder. On May 21, 2000.